Good afternoon, my spectacular speakers, and everyone else who's joining me who's not a speaker. I hope everyone is having a fantastic Thursday afternoon. I'm your host, Deborah Northcutt, and today we are going to have a wonderful conversation about 5 reasons you should be a guest on a podcasting show in the Sensational Speakers Lounge. Now, I go live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time on StreamYard. So make sure that you give StreamYard permission to see your comments. You have to log into StreamYard and give them permissions in order for me to see your comments. Again, my name is Deborah Northcutt. I am your speaker support consultant. And what I do is I support speakers. I support speakers, but if you're a coach or an entrepreneur who desires to build your speaking business through speaking, then this live is for you too. You know how there are so many speakers out there in the world who want to get their message out, but they don't know how, or they don't know exactly where to look to get speaking engagements? Well, what I do through my company, Free You Up VA, is help you get more speaking engagements so you can make more money and live the life that you've always wanted to live. So how do I help you get speaking engagements? Well, I help you with all of your upfront things like sending out all your speaking content, your one sheet, your headshot, your bio, all that information that someone might be looking for in order to bring you on for a speaking engagement. So that's what I do to help you out as a speaker support consultant. I also help you with your back end needs, and that goes for speakers, coaches, and consultants. And when I say your back end needs, I'm talking about your blogs, your website maintenance, article submissions, social media community manager. If you have a group and you need someone to manage your Facebook group, I can do that for you also, and any other administrative tasks that you might need help with. Just call me your go-to girl for speakers. And if you need help getting on podcasts, I can help you with that. So I have a link that I'm going to put up in the box when I'm done with my live, where you can set up a discovery call with me and see how I can help you get on more podcast shows, if that's what you wish to do. Now, if you're not able to watch my live and you're looking at the replay, make sure that you use the hashtag replay in the comment box so I can reply back to you. Now, I answer all questions that you might have. So make sure if you have any questions or concerns about my live, leave them in the comment box and I'll be more than happy to reply to your questions. I have a Facebook group called Support for Spectacular Speakers. I'd love for you to join my group and become a part of the community. Now, as a member of Support for Spectacular Speakers, you can be connected in a community with other like-minded professional speakers just like yourself. You can stay up to date with changes in the speaking community and get all of your burning questions answered on Ask Me Monday. Every Monday, I have an Ask Me Monday. I have a graphic on my website where you can go on there and ask me any question you might have. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a speaking question. It can be any question that you might have. Now, if you've been looking for a community like this, then look no further. Here's how you can join. I'll put the link to my Facebook group up in the comment box, up in the description box also. So let's get on with today's live. 5 reasons you should be a guest on a podcasting show. Now, hey, did you know that getting on a podcast show as a guest is really not that hard? I know some people think that I can never get on a podcasting show, or I really don't know how to be a guest on a podcasting show? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about today. Getting on a podcasting show is just like having a great conversation with someone, just like I'm having a conversation with you now. So podcast usage has increased dramatically in the last 5 years. And the reason why is because more people are at home because of COVID. Now, we know we can't go live on conferences right now in person. So podcasting is a great way to get your message out there. You don't have to be a professional public speaker in order to go on a podcast show. If you're looking to get visibility, recognition, and get in front of a new audience, then podcasting is the way for you to go. What are some of the perks that you can get for being on a podcast show? Well, it helps you to become a better communicator, but it also offers a range of leadership skills that you can learn as a podcaster. And those skills are project management, time management, relationship building, collaboration, and dealing with disruptions, critical thinking, decision making, and emotional intelligence. Now, I'm going to talk about today why you should be podcasting and what are the benefits of being a guest on a podcast show. There are a lot of benefits to being a guest on a podcast show. So let's get to it and let's talk about those benefits. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is you get free promotion being a guest on a podcast show. Podcast hosts are always looking for someone to be on their show. And in return for being a guest on the show, you get to promote yourself and offer your expertise and entertain their audience at the same time. The host is offering you the opportunity to promote yourself and your business for free. You want to determine if the podcast show fits your niche. That's the first thing that you want to do. Now, does this podcast show reach the audience that you want to serve? If you are a fitness coach, I'm going to give you an example. If you're a fitness coach and the podcast show is all about finance or accounting, then this definitely is not a show where your audience is hanging out. Being a guest on a podcast show only helps you if you're reaching the right listeners and the audience in your niche. Now, you want to do your due diligence by researching the show and see if it's aligned with your mission. You won't get on every podcast show that you submit to. Don't worry about that. The more shows that you submit to be a guest on and follow up, now that's the key word. You have to follow up, follow up, follow up. The more success that you have. Now, when I'm submitting people to podcast shows for my clients, I do 5 follow-ups to that podcast host because you can't take it personal if you don't hear back from a host right away. Sometimes they may not have received your email message, which I've been told that too, or they're too busy and they haven't had a chance to look at your email to follow up with you. So you make sure that you are following up with them. Sometimes they're overbooked or they're booked out. And if they reply back to you as you're following up with them, they'll let you know that we're booked right now. We don't need any more guests. Sometimes the podcast show, they're not podcasting anymore. So just keep following up with that host. The second thing that you want to do is the second thing that helps you by being a guest on a podcast show is you get to broaden your exposure and you get to be in front and engaged in front of a new audience. By doing just one podcast show, you can gain a brand new audience. You can reach people who've never heard of you before, that you would have never been able to reach without the help of being a guest on a podcast show. By bringing new and fresh, interesting topics of interest, your listeners will most likely share your episode with others or with their group of influence people in their network or circle of influence. Just think, if your episode connects with 10 people or 10 listeners on an extremely focused topic, it has the potential to generate word of mouth interest. Podcasts can be listened to on the go with your cell phone, tablet, or even in your car. You can listen, like I said, in your car, on your phone, or on your laptop. There are so many places where you can be a guest on a podcast show. There's iTunes, Spotify, Sirius XM, and Stitcher. And there's more than that. The list goes on and on and on. Now, when you're trying to be a guest on a podcast show, make sure that the podcast show that you choose has your niche audience there. If you're someone who is catering to women, make sure that you are checking out podcasts that cater to women. And most importantly, do your due diligence before you try to be a guest on a podcast show. There's nothing worse than you trying to talk to the host of a podcast show and you've never even taken the time to listen to any of the episodes of the show. You need to show that you are really up to date and knowledgeable about the podcast show that you want to get on before you try to be a guest on it. Listen to a couple of episodes and let the host know when you're contacting them that you have listened to an episode. List the name of that episode that you listened to so they really know that you did listen to an episode of their show, and tell them that you feel like what you do would be a great fit for their podcast show. You don't have to necessarily do exactly what that person did on the episode that you listened to, but if it mirrors what you do, your niche, then you can add it and it does what you do, then I would definitely inquire about being a guest on their show. Now, you can acquire killer content for all your social media channels. There's so much you can do with your content once you're done being a guest on a podcast show. I'm going to give you a bunch of ways that you probably never even thought of what you can do with this content once you're done being a guest on the podcast show. Once you get the links back from the host, it depends on if you did your podcast show via telephone or if you did your podcast show via Zoom or some other streaming device. And you get your links back from the host. Here are some of the ways that you can use that podcast show to spread out on all your social media channels. You can use that video and you can post it all over your social media channels like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm not sure about Pinterest, but I'm going to say maybe Pinterest too. Now, here's where it really gets good. Take your video and have that video transcribed by whatever software service you want to use. It could be otter.io or it could be Timmy. I'm not sure if Timmy is .io or .com, but one of those transcribing softwares you can use. Now, here comes the good part. Take that transcribed information and use it for a blog post for your website. You can also take that blog post and you can post it on LinkedIn articles, Twitter, Pinterest, and Facebook. You can also post it to any other article site that accepts articles to get more exposure. You can also take that transcribed information and pull 3 to 5 quotes from that and take those 3 to 5 quotes and turn them into graphics. You can use Canva, or if you have a VA or if you have someone else who can make those graphics for you, they can do that for you. And then you can post those 3 to 5 graphics all over your social media. You can also take that transcribed information and go to somewhere like SoundCloud, and in your own voice, you can read that blog post and put that up on SoundCloud too. Now, if your podcast shows that it was done by Zoom, like I said, where it's video, you can take that video and you can also post that video all over social media sites, just the video, like YouTube or some other video site. Now, there's a software called repurpose.io where you can upload that video and you can take that video and turn that video into 3 to 5 small snippets. When I say snippets, I'm talking about 2 minute little video snippets that you can pull out of that main video that you uploaded, and also use that content to post all over your social media sites. You can take the original video and post it on YouTube, like I said before, and any other video sites that accepts video. So there's a lot you can do with your podcast show once you get it in your hands. You can promote your products and services. Being a guest on a podcast show helps you to promote your products and services, and that means ching ching sales. At the end of your interview, the host will most likely ask you if you have anything to share and how people can connect with you. This is your opportunity when you invite your listening audience to come to your upcoming challenge, if you're running a challenge, webinar, or if you're selling some type of program or course. This is when you sell yourself and invite your listeners to join your tribe. Now, that could be a Facebook group, that could be a free resource, or whatever you want to lead people to. Choose only one thing, though. Being a guest on a podcast show is a great lead generator. And don't worry about people are not going to want to hear what you have to say. Don't think that way. You just spent 30 minutes to an hour providing value and sharing tips that your audience can resonate with. You only want to mention your products or services which are relevant to the topic that you were talking about on the show. Now, don't forget to provide a link to your offer with the host so the host can include it in the show notes once your show is over. And also for people who go back and listen to the replay, they can have access to your link and join what you're offering. Now, you might be wondering, how do I pitch myself for a podcast show? So, in order to get on a podcast show, I'm going to talk about what you need to do in an email. I'm going to go over 8 things you should have in your pitch email. Number 1, the first thing you want to do is introduce yourself in the email. You need to let the host know who you are and what you do, and most importantly, how you can help his or her audience and how you would be a good fit for the podcast show. Let the host know what you do, who you serve, and why you want to be on the show, and what value can you bring to their listeners. That's the main thing. What value are you bringing to the show? Second thing is, how can you help their audience? Have you gone through something personal that the audience would be interested in, and you can tell them exactly how you came out of it or what you did to overcome the problem? And number 3, you need to have at least 3 speaking topics for the host to choose from. Normally, the host will let you know from those three speaking topics that you provided which topic they're interested in and they want you to talk about. Number four, you need to have a recent professional headshot of yourself. The reason you need a professional headshot is for promotional use. The host will use it for her flyers, if she's making flyers, or put it on her website. You need a one sheet. Now, for those of you who don't know what a one sheet is, a one sheet is just what I said. It's one sheet of paper, and it's also your resume. What goes on the one sheet? You should have a professional headshot on there, your name and your address, your phone number, three speaking topics, like I said, a bio about yourself, and places that you have spoken in the past or been a guest on. And make sure that you have all your social media sites on there because the guest will most likely want to check you out on your social media sites and see how many followers you have for each social media site. Number six, you want to have a bio describing yourself. You need a Bible describing who you are and what you do and how you serve and how long you've been in your business. The host will use that bio to introduce you at the beginning of the podcast show. So make sure that your bio is up to date and presenting you in the best possible light. Now, remember, your bio is a living document. You always want to go back and you want to update your bio with any information that's new. Like if you change your headshot, if you have a new headshot, if you change your address, if you've been a guest on a show and it's not listed on that one sheet, you need to update that bio. You need to update that one sheet with your new information. Like I said, it's a living document, so don't let that document get static. The seventh thing is some podcast hosts might want to see a speaking reel of you. Now, what is a speaking reel? It's a video of you speaking at an event, and it shows the host how you sound and how you conduct yourself as a speaker and how the audience is reacting to your speech. Your speaking reel should be no longer than 3 minutes max. And the last thing is number 8, when you're sending your email and promoting yourself, make sure that you talk about a previous guest, how you've been a previous guest on their podcast show. You want the host to know that you did at least listen to the show. Well, let me go back and re-say that because what I said to me doesn't make sense. When you're sending an email and promoting yourself, make sure that you let the host where you're trying to get on their podcast show, know that you listened to a previous guest on their podcast show. Like I said, you want to do your due diligence and you want to let the host know that, hey, I took the time out and listened to a previous guest on your podcast show and I'm at least know the format of your show and if it's a good fit for me. That lets the host know that you would be a good fit for her show and that you also know what the show is all about. You get to develop a personal connection with the audience. Podcast shows are really close and personal. They allow you as a leader to talk about your personal challenges and successes in a calm environment. Normally, you would be podcasting from home in a quiet location. You're having an intimate conversation on relevant topics from your point of view, which allows listeners to feel like they know you and can relate to you and get to know your brand. It's just like having a personal conversation, just like I'm having with you right now. Just remember, the podcast show has the ability to reach thousands of listeners, so you can get your message out to thousands of people who never would have heard of you before. I'm going to do a recap of the 5 things that I just talked about. Number one was determine if the podcast show fits your niche. Number two was you get to broaden your exposure to a new engaged audience. The third thing I talked about was you can acquire killer content for all your social media channels. Number four was how to pitch yourself to a podcast show. I talked about how you send an email and what exactly you need to have in that email as you're pitching yourself. Number three was you get to develop a personal connection with the audience. Now, remember to join my Facebook group, Support for Spectacular Speakers. I'd love for you to join and become a part of my community. I'll have the link up in the description box of how to join my Facebook group. Now, follow me on all social media sites. On my Facebook personal page and my LinkedIn page, you can find me by Deborah Northcutt. And on my Twitter page, my handle is at FreeYouUpVA. My personal page, my Facebook business page is Free You Up VA. My Instagram page is free underscore you underscore up underscore VA. That's V as in Victor, A as in Apple. And my Facebook group is Support for Spectacular Speakers. I'll see you next week, every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time in the Sensational Speakers Lounge. I'm Deborah Northcutt, your speaker support consultant. Bye for now.